there, chipmunks! Welcome to the AMP Cycling Ride Review Series. I'm your host, Angry Chipmunk, and today we're in France, taking on the Ekoï Challenge Fréjus route. This route is available on Rouvy, so let's get right to it. This is a moderate length route at 35 kilometers long with a very mild 300 meters of elevation gain. The whole ride averages just 1% and will max out at 8%. There's only one Strava segment included on Rouvy, which is the main hill right in the middle of the route. There are no other segments listed on Strava for this ride, but there is a small hill right at the end of the route as well. The only route segment is Col de Bognon. It's at the 15.5 kilometer mark, is 3 kilometers long with 149 meters of elevation gain. The segment averages 4.9% and will peak at the route max of 8%. Strava considers it to be a Cat 4 climb. The first couple hundred meters of this climb are pretty mild, and you'll see a few dips and peaks of 2 to 3% up to about 5% or so. But once the gradient hits 7%, it will remain in the 5 to 7% range for the remainder of the hill. This is not an overly difficult hill, and you've had a very good warm-up before getting to it, so it's definitely a good one to push up pretty hard if you're so inclined. The terrain on either side is very flat and mellow, so whether you want to push hard or spin comfortably just depends on what type of ride you're wanting to do. There's one final hill at about the 33 kilometer mark. It's only about 1 kilometer long with about 30 meters of elevation gain and maxes out at 4%. Some quick gradient math suggests it averages 3%. There's no segment for it, so there's no real reason to push this one hard unless you want to finish strong. The last 1 kilometer to the finish is an easy downhill. For this ride, you'll want to warm up for your intended effort. If you're looking for an easy-going spin, you can delete the warm-up altogether if you use part of the route to warm up. If you're wanting to push this one pretty hard, give it 5 to 10 minutes. You don't see much in the way of elevation until about 6 kilometers in, and as there is that small hill just before the end, I would also be giving this one a pretty good cool down no matter how hard you've pushed it. And as always, I recommend pre-fueling your rides and including plenty of protein with that. If you can't pre-fuel, aim for about 10 to 15 grams of carbs right at the start of the ride. The toughest bit is right in the middle, so you'll want to have fueled before getting to it. At the downhill, another 10 to 15 grams should see you good to the end of the ride. There's not a whole lot of need for faster acting carbs on this ride, as it's quite flat, so your energy expenditure should be fairly consistent. It's always a good idea to keep them on hand though. If you're pushing this one or using it as a recovery ride, follow it up with a protein of some sort. If your aim is just to have a cruisy ride, it probably really isn't as necessary. The view on this one is pretty mixed and overall is just okay. It starts very much in city areas with a lot of suburbia and highways. It isn't until you hit the climb that it becomes much more lush countryside. However, the last approximately 4 kilometers are again more of a highway. A decent chunk of this route is right along the coast, but the ocean is hardly visible at all, which is a huge disappointment. I would have preferred much more countryside views for this one. For this ride, a medium effort took me just over 1 hour to complete on 100% difficulty emulation. With the possibility of deleting the warm-up, I would say to budget anywhere from 45 to 90 minutes. It's not really that suitable for those needing something sub 1 hour, but it's still a fairly short route that can fill a moderate time gap. Overall, this is a decent route that is suitable for almost all levels of rider. The main climb is not very difficult or very long, so even newer riders should be able to get off it without too much difficulty. It is one of those routes that can be as hard as you want simply by pushing harder or backing off. The flatness of it also lends itself to being a recovery ride or sandwiching around bigger and harder rides. For this route, I would give a 3.5 out of 5. It's pretty middle of the road kind of route, nothing too difficult, but that also makes for nothing too interesting. For the climbs, 1 out of 5 and half point out of 5. Neither are super difficult or technical, and both have the possibility of just spinning too easily. For the view, 3.5 out of 5. It's not terrible, but not great. I did really enjoy the countryside views, but the suburban and highway landscape is pretty dull. I wish there was more to see of the ocean rather than just the few scraps visible through the trees. And overall, 3.5 out of 5. It's not terrible, but not amazing either, just medium. Good for the reasons already mentioned, but nothing something I would seek out to do unless your goal is to complete every challenge ride on offer. Well, that's it for this review, so thanks for watching, Chipmunks. Please let me know what you think of the Ekoï Challenge Fréjus route when you complete it. I'll leave you to finish the rest of the ride, and I'll see you next week for another review. Until then, ride on, Chipmunks, ride on.